Second core principle. Lesson 9, Natural Family Care, and Lesson 11, Medicine Revisited, are good lessons to review for the second core principle, which is tracking your symptoms and your health improvements over time. So you need to keep track of the symptoms that have been resolved, the goals that you've had in your health that you've gotten taken care of and haven't come back. And you also need to take care of the ones that are still sticking around. You need to know where you've been and where you're going and where you're at right now. If you have health goals, this is a way to keep an eye on the fuel gauge, if you will, on where you're at. Keep your barometer up. So keep track of resolved symptoms and healing and what you did or what you are doing to accomplish the progress. You always need to know what you've done. It's easy to forget how far you've come and how you got there. So many times I have been in consults with people, and they'll come in and they're talking about the challenges they've had, and they're talking about their meal plan and all this other stuff. I'll start to ask questions, and here 2 or 3 of the things they came in for originally are completely resolved, and they hadn't even thought about it yet. These things are so frustrating to us when they're around, and then all of a sudden when they go away, it's like all of a sudden we just forget about it because it's not bugging us anymore. So if it's not bugging us anymore, we're not thinking about it, and therefore it's completely out of our mind. So it's easy to forget those things. Keep track of them. You can look back and see how much progress you've made. What medications would you like to reduce or eliminate? You need to know that. Don't just think because you're taking it right now that it needs to stick around. Most of you should not be taking the medicines that you're on right now for long term. Your body isn't designed to be taking a chemical to manage symptoms for the long term. Short term, okay. To reduce health risk for a short time, okay. But you need to keep track of what meds you're on and if you're reducing them or if you're eliminating them. Which ones have you already gotten rid of? Which ones have you already begun to reduce? A lot of the positive feedback that we're getting constantly is about how people are able to reduce their meds. They're cutting their meds back. You know what that means? It means their body's taking back over. Systemically, their body is taking back control of their health. So the less and less and less medication that they need because of that. What other short-term progress and health improvements have you noticed? Always keep an eye on those things. Third core principle. So lessons 2 and 3. So the lesson on the science of food and physiology, and lesson 3 is the shop till you drop, the food sourcing lesson. So food sourcing. Starting at the source and creating your sourcing list is an extremely important thing to do. How many people have begun their sourcing strategy already? Most of you have. You have begun getting those foods that you used to buy conventionally. You have begun to find other outlets where you can buy those same foods, either whether it's your beef, your chicken, your eggs, your produce. Buying those same foods from a local producer or a local grocer, and you're getting them better sourced. This is one of the most important plans in the entire lesson, is changing where you get your food from. Commit to whole foods as a rule. Reduce the processed food as much as you possibly can. Reduce the packaging as much as you possibly can. Make sure that the majority of the food that you're eating doesn't need an ingredient panel. And if it has an ingredient panel, it's like one thing or it's 2 things. The smaller the ingredient list, the more whole the food. Got it? Okay. So reduce and eliminate processed food, that's part of that. Make sure that you eat foods intentionally for their nutrition content. Remember how we talked about value for the dollar? When we are spending $1 now, we are spending it because of the nutrition content in the food, not the volume of the food that's there. Because we have been sold for years and years and years on value being the bulk of the food. How much is there? I'm sorry, but a whole lot of crap ain't worth any more money to me than a little bit of crap. Then you just got more garbage. That's really what it is. Nutrition content. If you're going to spend $1, you better get some nutrition for it. That's the type of consumer that you want to be, because that's what will get you to your health goals. That's what will provide your body with the tools and resources it needs. Remember the vote. Never forget what you're supporting when you purchase food. Never forget that when you hand $1 over the counter, you're saying, yes, I want more of this, please, just like you made it. This should convict all of us on some level. And as you work on your health goals and as you work on implementing your new lifestyle factors, keep this in mind. When you are buying your food, it is your vote. And you are saying, yes, please, I want more. Just like you made it the last time. Are you voting for your local farmer? Are you voting for those people who are committing their lives to growing you nutritious food and providing you with food that will help you be more healthy? Or are you supporting something else? Keep an eye on that vote. It's very important. Number 5, remember, your food can either be your medicine or your poison. There is no neutral ground with nutrition, folks. You can't just sit in a vacuum with the food you're eating and it's not affecting you. Does that make sense? It's either your body is either going to challenge your health or it's going to improve your health. It's either going to challenge your physiology or it's going to give your physiology more tools and nutrition to work with. The quality of your food will directly determine the quality of your health. If you look at your health situation right now, it will be a direct reflection on the investment you're making in your food. Always. Use your sourcing list to become more fluent in your shopping and food choices. The sourcing list, a lot of times, is something that you need to use in the beginning. I will be very honest with you, we don't have much of a sourcing list now. What we use our sourcing list for now is when we find the same foods we've been buying in different places to find out what they're priced, to find out who's value adding these things, making sure that we're getting the best value that we can. Because a lot of these foods are being supplied now in more areas, they're more readily available, and you need to make sure you're not paying too much for them. You also need to make sure you're not being fooled by the marketing on the front of the package. You need to make sure you know what's in the food and make sure you know who's carrying it. So the sourcing list basically just goes through the various examples of some different places where you can get things, some different examples that have, you've got your beef here, this is your farmer, or this is the store that carries the beef that you're looking for. This is the company that I buy my cheese from, or this is the company that I get my flour from, or whatever it is. But keep an eye on your sourcing and make sure you know where you're going to be getting those things. Don't forget where you're getting them from. Fourth principle, lesson 2, 3, 4, and 5. All the nutrition lessons are all going to help you create a meal plan that works best. Meal planning is important. Your intention around food is important. Everything we've talked about up to this point as far as food sourcing and all of that is more important than meal planning. Where you're getting your food from is more important than what specifically you're eating in what ratios. Does that make sense? Because if you're committing to whole foods, it doesn't matter what ratio of whole foods you're eating, for the most part, you're going to be healthy. If your whole foods are sourced right, you're going to be healthy. Meal planning will help you hone in and tune in on your meal plan. So make sure that you're getting adequate proteins. Make sure you're getting adequate essential amino acids. Remember, we talked about those amino acids in Lesson 2 that the body cannot create on its own. You have to get those through your food. Make sure that you're getting adequate fats. And remember, there are essential fatty acids, and there are those fatty acids that are derivatives that are not essential. Carbohydrates should come primarily from vegetables, legumes, and fruits. Your carbs should be coming from these things that are grown from the earth, not things that are processed and put in packages all the time. So make sure your carbs are coming from whole food sources. Reduce carbohydrates from grain sources and processed sources. It's that simple. Remember, we talked about the white carbs, the processed carbs, those flour-based carbs. A lot of the time, they're full of gluten. These are the carbohydrates that a lot of times have the genetically modified ingredients in them. We need to make sure that we're reducing those. Okay? And hydration is key. We must stay hydrated, and whole foods is one of the best ways to stay hydrated. Our water sources are quite compromised these days, so you need to find filtration that you're comfortable with. But whole foods is going to help make sure that you stay hydrated. Another thing is finding things like drinks that are definitely most water, but they can help increase your water intake. They're also delivering other nutrition as well. So realize and remember that hydration is key. And refer back to your meal planning guide, and we have the mini meal planner right in here. It has breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks all here. And you can keep it with you, and you can refer to it and make sure that you're staying in the green categories primarily, and make sure that you're not venturing too much into the yellows, and obviously, definitely not focusing your meal planning on what's in the red categories. This is your quick reference guide for your meal planning. This is a condensed version of what's in the reference guide. All right? So refer to your journal for that stuff.